Welcome back to the San Diego Opera Podcast. I'm Nick Ravelis, and my guest today is the soprano singing the role of Micaela in our production of Carmen, Soprano Sarah Tucker. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm welcoming all of these artists who are new to San Diego Opera, so I have to start asking you where you're from, where you got your start.
Oh, well, I'm originally from Houston, Texas. My family lives there, and I've made it my home base. And I went to school in Cincinnati at the conservatory.
At the conservatory, okay.
Yeah. And before that, I did my undergrad at Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas.
I've been through San Marcos, Texas.
Really?
I have, on the way from Austin to San Antonio. Is that right?
Yep, that's
Is that
right. On that scary stretch of highway.
Exactly.
I know it well.
Yeah. Well, Micaela, what an interesting character, because in the source, the Mérimée book, she's not there at all, right? So the librettist and Bizet kind of created her for the opera. I imagine that leaves you as a singing actress portraying her a little bit on your own, right? Kind of creating the character. So where does she come from for you? Who is she?
Well, traditionally, I think people assume that she and Don José grew up together. So likely she was a neighbor, or I think some early sources say that she might have been a ward of his family, but they've grown up together very closely, and so she probably always thought that they would end up married. And I think Micaela's primary motivation is to make things happen the way they're supposed to. And when things go awry, she is stubborn, and she really tries to make it work, which I can relate to. As a soprano, that's a common personality trait.
Yes. Well, it's interesting, too, because the music tells us that as well. The music of Micaela, as opposed to Carmen, or to Don José, who is probably the character in the opera who changes the most over the scope of the arc of the story. Her music is very lyrical, rather controlled, and in a more traditional style for the time, rather than sort of trying to break free like Carmen, who's all over the map.
Right.
But it would seem to me to be very grateful music to sing, is it?
Yes, it's beautiful music, which can be deceptively difficult. So you approach it and you think, okay, well, this is very singable, it's not terribly rangy, but the difficulty comes in making something special out of it, because it can be on the simple side.
And you don't, well, no one wants anything to be ordinary.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And, there's even instruction in the music that lines are delivered simply. There's this idea that Micaela just says things how they are. There's no artifice to her.
Right.
And all the other characters kind of have, a face that they wear for certain situations, and she's always herself.
Yeah. I just from my study of the era and the fact that it premiered at the Opéra Comique, Micaela seems to be a kind of character that's a holdover from the comique tradition. That there was always this sweet, pure soprano at the center of every show.
The ingenue, yes.
And and those opera stories that played at the comique were typically sentimental, and nobody died, and no tragedy.
Happy endings.
And what a shift, for this piece. But as we were talking a little bit before the interview. You don't have a fight scene.
I don't, sadly.
And just about everybody else does. But
Right.
you experienced a production that I find very interesting. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, we decided to take Micaela in a different direction.
Where was this, first of all?
This was at Arizona Opera.
Okay.
I was a young artist.
Our neighbor.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. And we decided to give Micaela a little bit more of a backbone. And in Act 3, there's a moment where Micaela is the one who rips Don José off of Carmen, who he's abusing quite severely in this scene. And she tells him, "You will come with me to see your dying mother before she passes." And it's and then when he sort of wakes up from his rage, cloud. He has this remorseful, oh my God, my mother, and instead of comforting him, Micaela sort of takes a step away from him, and then leaves him behind. She doesn't even wait. She just exits the stage, and then he's sort of, well, I guess I gotta go,
Well, that sounds like a very different take on Carmen.
It was very fun.
That's exciting.
Yes, very different.
Oh my gosh. Do you get anything like that in this production?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Without the physical violence.
Right.
This is also a very strong Micaela, which I think suits the music as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one great thing about Bizet is that you can have all these different interpretations for these characters as the years pass and as society changes, and it still works really well.
Yeah.
So it could be that the original intention for Micaela was to truly be this genuinely simple, sweet, angelic character, which isn't really a fully fleshed out human being.
Right.
But we've sort of given her a little more strength in some subtle and some less than subtle ways.
I'm glad to hear that, because all of that, to my ear, is in the aria, in Jeudi,
Yes.
in Act 3.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you've got that rising figure that the cellos play, I believe, in the orchestra, which kind of which propels everything forward. And then there's this midsection where she sort of stands up and
Right.
says it, right?
Gathers her courage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is terrific. So I think maybe to unpeel the onion on the rest of her, her presence in the opera would be
You
a
can start
wonderful
there.
thing to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Starting with the aria. What else are you singing these days? I'm assuming a lyric soprano.
I am, yes. I'm actually preparing Tatiana in Eugene Onegin, which I will do 4 days after I finish up here.
Oh my God.
So I'm studying it heavily right now.
The letter aria.
It's my favorite.
Oh,
I'm
good
so
for
excited.
You.
Yes,
good
yes.
for you. Tchaikovsky does amazing things with scales.
I know.
It's just incredible.
It's magic, really.
It really is.
My favorite opera, my favorite role. Very, very excited for that.
Great. Was the Russian tough to wrap your mind and your mouth around?
Yes, I'm pretty lucky that when I was at CCM, we had some optional Russian diction classes that I did take, and I took copious notes because I love singing in Russian.
Yeah.
And then again at Arizona Opera, I got to cover Tatiana when they did their performance of Eugene Onegin, and so I got to reap the benefits of all of that Russian coaching.
Oh, that's great. And where will this be?
This will be in Bozeman.
Bozeman, Montana.
Yeah, it'll still be cold.
Yeah.
Appropriate for Russia.
Indeed, but such a gorgeous piece.
Yeah.
And then after that, are you preparing roles that you're looking forward to right now?
Yeah. I actually have my first Donna Anna coming up, which is a little intimidating.
Yeah.
Usually I sing Elvira or Tsarlina, but this will be a cool challenge.
Moving on up.
Yeah, and then of course more Micaela. She's my girl. I do her a lot.
Well, wonderful. Well, I'm so delighted that you're here, and it's so heartwarming to welcome new artists to town, because we just love opera here and love singers, and it's always nice to welcome debut artists. So thanks for being here, and
It's a pleasure.
good luck.
Thank you.